let's make sure that we build the 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 design and the ink or the decoration selection so that it can run in production and it should look good from the rack. We live below the fold. We live underneath those incredible brands.
What is the vision? Right? So like there's a story, but then it's like, where are you trying to go? If it's compelling enough, then you start to get people to believe in it.
We gotta kind of shake it up again, but you know, we're back onto the content bandwagon. You know, our, I guess, commitment to our clients is that if we're working on something significant in which we have huge news to be released very soon, you know, we have been in the lab for the last 6 or 8 months, and we have something huge that we are working on. So for that, our commitment is always to put client services first before creating content or doing fun stuff like this. But I feel great. We're back in the studio. We had to reconnect everything. All the cords were missing. We have a great episode here. I've got a pro with me, Tyler, our creative product, all things art, all things print, understands the darkroom, can kind of bridge every single aspect of product together. So we're taking a different kind of look to content, and we're going to be focused on creating like masterclass or creating, you know, your company's training platform. So I brought in a pro, and we figured we would just start from the top. So we're going to do a screen printing master class today, which this could end up being an hour long. I don't know. I think we'll try to somewhat condense this thing.
Could be 8 hours.
Yeah, could be. Actually, yeah. If we go deep, could be 8 hours. But Tyler has done an unbelievable job with getting a kind of like a wireframe or a framework on how to choose the proper ink or technique, breaking it up into basically 2 categories. You know, segment into really quickly, we are going to be printing these as like actual wall graphics, as posters. So please comment if you want one of them, and we'll DM you and get your address and so forth, and we'll send one of those out. But Tyler, why don't you take it from the top? You know, talk about the framework, how we break it up into garment and art, and then we'll just start rolling. We'll start with cotton, and we'll roll. But talk about the framework a little bit more, how you thought about this.
Yeah, so ultimately, I think was really just putting together a visual guide that can aid throughout each layer of the process, because I think every person's a little bit different. Every company's framework is a little bit different. So you might have a designer that's designing on a product that doesn't exist, and in which case it's to that production manager to bring that thing to life. And so this is just a good visual guide that, you know, obviously if you design with intention using this as a guide, that's, you know, you hit it from the beginning.
Thumbs up.
That's ideal. And so we use this, we're using this as an internal tool for our designs. We're using it as kind of a guide for ourselves and for clients and just the industry in general. As far as like best practices based on what the art type is and what the garment substrate is. So we have it split out realistically. Like the main 4 that you see for art is like photoreal. Everybody, you know, all the teeny boppers want their face on a t-shirt.
So we'll start with the art is going to be a photo, right?
Yep.
We're taking a photograph and we want to print that as perfectly as humanly possible on that garment.
Yeah. And
if the garment is 100% cotton, what is your go-to?
We go straight screen print on that. And, you know, obviously our company's volume focused. So, you know, there are avenues for lower volume, but we're talking, you know, average order size 300 units or more. Screen print's definitely ideal. And we have some just basic guides for our team as far as what's successful. So we pair that with like a discharge underbase. We use back of the book Pantones or uncoated Pantones to get the muted flesh colors. That way people aren't looking oversaturated, like the photos overexposed. We have some notes as far as like color count max for separators. And just max print sizing for that style. So anything 100% cotton photo real, if you're talking 300 units or more, screen print is the bread and butter.
Yeah, you made a good point there that, oftentimes we will get a photo and then, the management will be like, oh, print that CMYK on that black garment.
Right, which is not ideal because you don't have control over the colors and the print.
Yep.
And, a lot of times you might see that on social media happening and it's a very zoomed out or like low res video that might look okay. But once you see that product in person, you don't have control over that dot specifically and what color Pantone you're using in it.
So what we're suggesting here is if you're going to do a photo, you're going to need separations, and we're going to need separations from a professional separator, not running it through Photoshop channels or asking ChatGPT to do it.
Yeah, automated software is not there yet. It's not going to give you the final product that you're looking for, and we prefer to sep everything in-house. Our entire art team is well versed in doing seps. We build the sep for our shop, for our thumbprint, because we know we have the foresight to see what it will come out like. So it's definitely, this is some companies have their own separators. They don't want us to separate. A lot of them do. So this is like a good guide even for a separator to know like a 12 color is a sweet spot for a separation. Yeah.
Okay. So moving over, we'll go to the next part of the chessboard there. We're going to go with 100% cotton, but the art wants a vintage result. What's your go-to?
So that, again, we're always talking volume. So 300 plus is discharge ink print or water-based inks, right? So
discharge.
Yeah. So discharge is water-based. It's a water-based ink in itself, but it has added agent. So discharge is used for darker colors and water-based is used for lighter colors, like as far as substrate. So discharge ink literally gives you that exact look that you're going for in that vintage art.
So what's the difference if you had a screen printed plastisol job that you were doing on the left hand side and then you had a discharge job on the right hand side? If you put your hand over both of those prints, you would be able to feel a little bit of the plastisol. Now, on the photoreal side, we're suggesting using a discharge underbase to, in essence, remove another layer that would be there. But then when you go on to the vintage side, to the discharge, you couldn't tell where that ink is. If you close your eyes, you'd have no idea where it is. So no hand at all on that side.
Right, because that water-based ink is, when it's discharge, it's bleaching the fabric into the color. So it's actually penetrating the fabric itself and it's pulling the color out of the substrate and it's changing it and bleaching it into the color of the ink. Whereas plastisol is plastic-based with PVC. And it sits on top of the fabric. So you get that within the hand.
Yeah, the other thing that I think maybe we underutilize, nowadays, but if you want a vintage result, I've always leaned towards the discharge side, but I also love textures. Throw a textured layer, whether that's just some noise or whether that's, I don't know, you could take you could of course find them on the internet. You could also just take a marker and like put it on a piece of paper and scan it in. Right?
Yeah.
Throw a textured layer that then when it discharges, it'll even look more vintage.
Yeah, and we build our textures. We have a bunch of different textures that we use internally, and we build them off of what you're saying. Like it could be a photo of concrete where you're pulling out like some concrete texture. We have like go-tos for vintage distressing, but the key is definitely like distressing the art to give it that vintage look. You want it to look worn in, and then using those discharge inks to give it like that muted color that it looks aged and it has no hand to it.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, cool. Moving on, we're staying within the 100% cotton row, but we're moving over to all over. So I have a piece of art, I have a graphic, and I want to print sleeve to sleeve, and I'm choosing a 100% cotton garment. How do we pull that off?
So that we've, re-engineered a machine here in order to print 30 by 30 max sizing. So all over 100% cotton, screen print is a viable option. It's something that, we saw the industry trend. We understood that this was a need and that things were becoming bigger and bigger. So we have the capability to do the 30 by 30 print size on 100% cotton. Now you're limited to 4 color discharge water-based inks, and you're limited to your color registration.
And why are you suggesting discharge or water-based ink? Why not plastisol?
The viscosity of the ink makes it a lot less sticky. So the way that we have to load, normally when you load a screen print, you're loading and you're dressing the palette. And that palette's got a small amount of tack on it to hold the fabric in place. So as colors are stacking on top of it, it doesn't move at all. In order to print the 30 by 30 size, we have to use a 40 by 40 board that the shirt or garment cannot load onto and be dressed on normally. So it's laid flat, and in which case you have 2 layers of seams or whatever you have to go over in order to print that. So
no clumping, right? I mean, that's kind of like every time somebody's like, well, yeah, I really want to hit a color, right? Like, I don't want discharge because I'm worried about muting the colors, and I really want to hit a Pantone, right? But always take a less perfect color over clumping on the seams there.
Yeah.
So stick with discharge every time on the all over 100%.
Yeah, and again, distressing is a key for that in order to, if you have like solid collegiate text going over seams, you're always going to have some level of inconsistency in the ink deposit. So it's worked really well for us is leaning into distressing as a stylistic choice, in which case any minor imperfections from going over those 2 layers looks intentional.
Yeah. Love it. Okay, cool. 100% cotton and solid vector artwork.
Yeah, so this, I mean, for us personally, our stylistic take, I prefer discharge in this case, in this environment. For the reasons we stated before, it keeps it really soft. The colors stay muted. You don't really get that plastisol sheen to the print. Yeah. But ultimately, depending on what the brand intention is. So if you have to consistently match a very specific brand color,
like corporate color or something like that, I need the apple blue or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Plastisol will give you better color control, especially on pigment dyed blanks. So pigment dye, we have this issue where things can be sometimes over dyed or the dye's not fully bonded to the garment, in which case it will affect the ink when it's printed. But plastisol, since it stacks on top, you have more color consistency.
We should actually resurface and link some of those videos. We have gone into that in exhaustion maybe, but yeah, in essence, if a garment is going to be garment dyed or piece dyed or pigment dyed, all these different types of dye, then when you put that discharge agent on it, it's not going back often to its like natural form. It could go from a black to a yellow or from a black to a purple or whatever the case may be, whatever that garment was before. And so that kind of opens up a whole nother ball of variables, and in a game full of variables, we want to try to
narrow it down
and eliminate that.
That's what this goal of this kind of cheat sheet or visual guide is to try to narrow down the world of infinite variables that we live in, to give you best practices based on the 80% of product that gets decorated.
Yeah, I think something else that is important to be said here, and I'll dedicate this part to, you know, the king, you know, Frank Vacanti, the absolute king of screen print, you know, maybe from our perspective. He always taught us that, like, don't hold that garment up 2 inches away and try to pick problems out of it, right? Let's make sure that we build the 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 design and the ink or the decoration selection so that it can run in production, and it should look good from the rack,
Curb appeal.
right? Like,
Get that curb
okay, it's
appeal.
hanging on a rack. Does it look good? And were you able to produce them, right? Like, sometimes, sure, could you make something absolutely perfect? Yeah, but maybe you're going to bring your production down to 30 pieces an hour over 300 pieces. So,
Right. And maybe you're sacrificing, you know, a little bit of that color consistency for that really soft hand and that muted tone.
yeah, what's the vision? I think was, you know, that was like always this question. Okay, what's the vision? I want a beautiful vintage looking piece that sits well on a rack. Okay, great. We know what to do from there.
That's it.
So, okay, moving on. We're going to the next row, which is blends. So we have, call it a hoodie,
Yeah.
often blends,
Fleece.
50-50, 60-40, whatever. We have a blend garment, a fleece in this case, and we want to do a picture, a photorealistic picture. What's the strategy?
Yeah, so for this, especially talking volume, screen print is ideal and definitely possible. The biggest key, which is noted here, is using more cotton content for screen print. The more cotton content, the better. So there's a lot of different fleece options on the market that are 100% cotton face that allows you.
What does that mean? And actually, I've heard that many times. You know, I think it's not kind of known knowledge of what a cotton face is on a hoodie.
Yeah, so the cotton face is basically like the final layer that they're using on the substrate surface. So the outward surface, the internal will always, for fleece, always has, you know, limit of how much cotton can be in it. But 100% cotton face is basically you have that top layer of the substrate is 100% cotton, and that allows us to use the proper inks to bring the print to life.
Yep. And you know what else? Something. Okay, so why aren't all hoodies 100% cotton? Right? Like, well, they're not all 100% cotton because it's more expensive.
Cost
right? So
involved.
that will drive the cost up, and then from, you know, maybe this is my perspective, but usually, unless it's like heavily washed, a blend will be way softer and more drapey than 100% cotton. Again, unless it's like highly laundered. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. Like, it's like kind of a technology feature in essence, you know, is that you could put one layer of cotton on top and then have the blend underneath.
Yeah, 100%. And that's, I think you nailed it. It's that polyester synthetic fabric is a lot softer than cotton in its natural form. So you get a softer garment without the silicone washes and without the treatments.
Okay, so you're saying on that one you're still rolling with plastisols, or what's your go-to there?
So for that one, depending on the design, and depending on the ultimate blend and the substrate, you can use discharge base. You can pair it with a discharge
you're
base.
Going back up to, you know, to the photo reel on the 100%.
Similar to the 100% cotton. That's like if you got an 80-20, 100% cotton face, you can usually get away with that. Now, if it's something very, very vibrant, very, you know, and it might be a lower cotton content, then you can use a thicker, higher viscosity plastisol base in order to block any dye migration and keep the color saturation.
Great. Yeah, I mean, we've also gone over that in exhaustion. We can probably link a couple of those in the show notes a little bit. Moving on, we have a blend, but then we want to do a vintage. So we got a 60-40 or a 50-50, but the art is a vintage result, what's your go-to?
That one again, screen print, I think is king for anything vintage if it has some cotton in it. Ultimately will depend on the blend final numbers, but I posted this Black Crows one here because I think this one
I love
was
that.
just a killer
I
at the
love that
show.
design.
Like
It's perfect.
the amount of orders we did for this, I mean,
Yeah.
they were flying off the shelves.
It's just a great print.
So something like that, using a lighter colored garment, and it's a lot thinner. The blended t-shirts, for the same reason as the fleece, right? That polyester fabric makes it feel a lot thinner, a lot more airy. You'll get the best result on a lighter colored substrate with water-based inks, and that's exactly how we brought this one to life. You could use discharge on a darker colored substrate, but it's really based on what is the key for the colors, right? When I think vintage, I don't think vibrant colors whatsoever. So if the colors are muted, if it is truly a vintage design, you can get away with it on a darker substrate, but best practices is on a lighter colored fabric.
All right. Moving on, we have a blend. Again, we're going to want either 100% poly or a blend. And then we want to do an all over. Where are you going?
Sublimation, I think, is key for that, especially depending on the
Cut and sew
all over
sublimation
cut and
as
sew
well, right?
sublimation.
Like, just that let's not try to sublimate a pre-constructed garment and have all this mess here and
Right,
here
right.
and not be able to do the crossovers. Cut and sew sublimation always.
That reigns king for sure,
Yeah,
100%. And that is, especially for an all over print that requires a repeating pattern across the front and back. That is something that's better developed cut and sew so that it is applied to the entire fabric versus a screen print or a transfer where you're not going to get that.
Yeah, I will say that some of the blends that I see that are out there can get really really soft. Again, is it going to be like a garment dyed wash T-shirt? Is it going to be that soft? Maybe not. It's not going to be that plush, but I'm definitely seeing the technology and the fabrics get better and better. The only other thing I think that we should highlight is if you don't do 100% polyester and you do go with a blend, then you shouldn't expect blacks.
Right.
You
The
shouldn't
color
expect
saturation.
Your color
Yeah.
saturation
Yeah.
will come down.
Yeah, which I have a note on here if you look in there, 100% poly for deeper color saturation because the fabric is made for sublimation. Like it is the ideal fabric to sublimate on. But again, you could definitely get away with it on blends, and that's something that I don't think a lot of the industry is doing.
I like the look. I like the little muted look. I mean, I'm not trying. I'm not a Versace wearer here.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for these like big bold colors. I prefer it a little bit vintage.
Yeah, and usually big bold colors don't pair well with all over to begin with because you want the size to be what's loud. You don't want the color to be what's loud. If the colors are loud, then you're better off kind of shrinking that and letting the colors shine versus the size.
Agreed. Okay, moving over to the next bingo card here. We have blends, and then we have solid vector art. And anyone who's in this business knows about the college. What is it called? Like the college tee or like the resort tee.
Yeah.
It's I want letters across my entire back. How are we pulling that off?
That's transfer all the way, especially for that type of vector art where it's large collegiate text where you're going over seams or anything like that. Transferring over seams gives you the least amount of inconsistency in ink deposit.
When he said least, still exists.
Yeah,
right?
You'll still see a little bit of that
It's
texture.
not a flat surface, so in essence, when you go over that seam, there is not perfect.
Yeah. It's all just rudimentary science that when you look at all the variables together, it feels overwhelming. But if you just break something down into just that, it's like, can you apply something that is flat over something that's not flat and make it flat? Not without changing the structure of the fabric, which you can't do, right?
Cool. Going down next to the 100% polyester robe. And you might even be able to hit these three in a row. Whether you're doing photo real or a vintage or an all over, you kind of have one option.
Yeah, sublimation is, dominates this aisle here. Anything 100% polyester, sublimation again is just like built around polyester fabric. So you get the best results with sublimation.
Yeah, we could actually do a sublimation master class, in following up from here, kind of really breaking down the process. Because I know oftentimes people think that there's ink involved there, but there isn't. It is a gas process. It actually is pretty cool to see that thing happen. There is, in essence, ink going on the paper, but
Right.
you're not laying ink down onto the fabric. The gas process is creating those colors between the fabric.
Yeah, it's almost like DTG in a way. I think more people may have seen DTG and like seen that process, so that's kind of what it more emulates towards. And this is just, I mean, you can go balls to the wall as far as like design, art type, anything like that. Sublimation can do on polyester, whether it's vibrant colors or Pantone matching. We can usually get within like a 10% tolerance of a Pantone, of a specific branded Pantone. Whether it's photo real like this Madonna one or more vintage like this Razor Ramon, anything's possible. And really it's key for like repeating patterns that are wrapping the entire garment. So you might have, where you might pair some of these together, where you want that repeating pattern across the entire thing, but then you want like an embroidered chest or something like that. Media. Yeah, so that's very possible. And actually, on that note, with the all over screen print, not to shift topics here, but that's possible with the all over screen print, where if you design in a foreground background, yeah, so you can print one position as the all over print in the background, and then we could stack plastisol on top of those water based inks. So if you have like a standard print size or something that's 15 by 20 or whatever, we can print and isolate that background as a single all over print position and then stack on top of it on another machine.
Love it. Okay, last bingo card here that we have, 100% cotton and vector art, and I guess you'd say like this is the coach's jacket.
Yeah, 100% poly, 100% poly.
100% poly.
Yeah.
100% poly, coach's jacket. We need a logo on the back and a name. Where are you going?
Transfer, for sure. Transfer, a digital transfer specifically, will adhere to that fabric the best. Anything that's water resistant, which polyester in its nature is water resistant. Like if you imagine you spill water and you take a 100% polyester sheet and you try to clean that water up,
you gotta let the clouds evaporate.
It's just gonna smear.
Be there forever.
Yeah, exactly. So that exact reason is why transfer is ideal, because the ink doesn't adhere as well to that water resistant fabric. So even like nylon or anything that has that water resistant coating, which polyester does naturally, transfer is ideal.
Nice. Okay, so just in case you didn't think that there was a lot of variables at play into this business, and I think what keeps us still so bullish on the process of screen printing is all that it has to offer. Why don't you run through, and even if you want to pluck some of your favorite here, but Michelle's going to continue to layer on this graphic. And then again, if you comment, we're gonna send you one of these. We'll engage with you, get your address. But it doesn't just stop there. We have specialties that are done screen print, and then you even added some more kind of like of your favorite mixed media decoration types. Why don't you kind of pile drive us, take us right through them?
Yeah. So the screen print specialty inks are a key to highlight, because this comes with like little to no added cost as far as the product because we don't have to rehandle it. So
Creates a ton of dimension and separation from a regular print.
yeah, and it can be printed in line. So like if you want puff, but you only want the text puff, which I recommend, a lot of people are like puff everything, and it's like no. Puff what needs to be puffed, and let everything else.
Rhinestone everything. Right?
Yeah.
Rhinestone what needs to be rhinestone.
Because it gets too busy, it gets too hard to read, right? So you want, like, if your brand name, you want a little more attention to that, but there's an image or a character under it. It's like puff that brand name, and we can do that in line where we're screen printing the character or image, and then we're adding that puff ink in the same rotation. So screen print with the specialty and like that mixed media effect, you can really punch up something that might look simplistic, and you create it, you make it more loud through decoration versus through design. So there's, an entire row here, and you have different, like your metallic is kind of like a more brushed versus your glitter has like that true flake in it. So ultimately, depending on what you're looking for, if you want it to look more like chrome and more futuristic, you go towards that metallic. If you want it to be like bedazzled, blinged out, loud, then glitter is key. And that's a lot of times like people mix up foil, glitter, metallic. They're not sure which one they want. And it's very intentional with which one you'd go with, based on those, those notes. Some other ones that we have on here in the honorable mentions is, digital hybrid and DTG. These are two that, kind of play into that 100% cotton realm. And depending on quantity and art, you can definitely utilize these as a resource as far as, whether it be pricing or whether it be a taste. Some people are specific on wanting that digital quality of the print. They don't want to see a halftone. In which case, high volume, you go digital hybrid, which is
lower volume, you would go DTG.
Yeah, exactly. And again, any direct print. So these would be direct prints similar to screen print. Cotton is king. So the more cotton content, the better the final product will be. Beyond that, we have, chain stitch and embossing. These are two embroidery specific techniques that we've developed over the last year. So the embroidery embossing kind of gets you a lower MOQ and gets you a more economical price for a lower quantity compared to traditional embossing.
Also kind of feels better. We just did another traditional embossing job, and it's just like very heavy on the inside. Whereas like the cloud back that we use,
you feel the glue from the traditional embossing.
I prefer it.
It's also, from what I've seen, it's more durable because it's sewn into the fabric versus it being the adhesive where, you could still get some product longevity out of traditional embossing, but the embroidery embossing is just, to me, it reigns king too. The chain stitch is, again, something that we built based on where the industry's going. It's kind of a classic technique that was never really scaled for volume. So that's something that, I think after 2 or 3 inquiries that we get, we're like, buy 4 machines. Let's go. So we're all in on chain stitch, and the order volume is speaking for itself in that way. So we see that as a major trend this year. Beyond that is like rhinestones, patches, just some of the things that don't apply to any of these other categories specifically, but can kind of be utilized in all of them. Because these are
mixed media.
Yeah, mixed media, and it's applied to the fact, like anything that's sewn in will work with anything. Now, would we recommend it on a lightweight blended garment to have like a heavy applique or patch? No, I would say that's not a great idea, but is it possible? Yes. Ultimately, for some of these, it's like making sure that the fabric has weight to it so that you don't feel the weight of the decoration.
Yeah, one thing I will highlight is, man, the foam trucker with a transfer on it is making the most unbelievable comeback. I've never seen more of that. I mean, not only in the wild, but, at all of our warehouses, it's like They are absolutely everywhere. So I don't mind it.
Yeah, and transfer I think just looks so much better on a foam
Yeah,
trucker than embroidery
yeah.
because that
You don't get a
panel,
puckering. Yeah.
yeah, the panel is it has depth to it, and
Yep.
there's no way to embroider that and not sink it in a little bit
Yep.
because of the I mean, if you think about the science of embroidery, you're penetrating the fabric and it's being tied back
Pulling in.
to the inside of it. So transfer for us reigns king, and you can develop the art in a way that kind of simulates embroidery. You can also transfer on like the brim of a foam
Yeah.
trucker.
Nice.
And a lot of times, people are asking to maybe embroider the back or on the side. And in that case, a patch, like a simulated twill patch or something of that nature, you can still get a marrowed border to get
Yep.
that embroidered look, but there's no stability in the mesh backing of a foam trucker. And without that stability for that embroidery, you're kind of left to wherever the thread lands, it lands.
That's
It's
the
going to
design.
look a little jagged because
Yeah.
of the substrate surface.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's season 2. That's our screen printing masterclass. Thank you, Tyler, for joining us. Episode 1, season 2. We didn't kill Carlo. He will be back with us. Our commitment is continuing to develop good content and creating this internal training course, I guess you'd say, that could be utilized to give to your team members or give to new artists or new designers, new clients that are coming in that may not totally understand all the options in screen print or decoration or product or working the road. Kind of, we're going to try to hit the whole gamut. So please comment once again if you want this poster, and we'll start getting them out.
Yeah, buddy.